Deep Purple in 1969 were a different band. They'd had a hit with a cover of Hush, and they played concerto for group and orchestra with the Philharmonic. They were a proto-prog band, an art band, but they were not a heavy rock band, and Blackmore hated it. So he pushed the band to pivot to something harder, heavier, and meaner. The result was In Rock, Speed King, Child in Time, Bloodsucker. That album basically invented heavy metal alongside Black Sabbath. It was incredibly bold, but in terms of character, this didn't require any internal struggle for him. This was a young guitarist with a big ego finally getting his way. He was asserting a vision. It was absolutely important, but bold for him? Not really. Number 4, forming Blackmore's Night. In 1997, Ritchie Blackmore, a godfather of heavy rock guitar, announced he was done with rock music. No more Purple, no more Rainbow. Instead, he was going to play Renaissance folk music with his partner Candace Knight. Lutes, hurdy-gurdies, songs about castles and fairies. On the surface, this looks like the ultimate bold move. He abandoned the crushing volume of hard rock, traded his Strat for a lute, and ran off to wear pirate shirts and play Renaissance fairs. But look closer. Is running away truly bold when running away is all you've ever done? Blackmore's Night is a project where he has absolute zero compromise control. No committee of strong-willed musicians, no friction. It's built around a partner who shares his vision completely. It's an escape to a safe, controlled, artistic zone. He was tired of rock and tired of business and tired of band politics. It's a move that made him happiest, and that's really what's most important. But in terms of character, it was an escape hatch, not his boldest act. Number 3, firing Dio. By 1978, Rainbow had released Rising and Long Live Rock and Roll. If you know anything about heavy metal, you know these albums are sacred texts. Rising especially. It's the blueprint for everything Maiden and their ilk would build on. Blackmore and Dio helped lay the groundwork for power metal. Dio was the most creative partner Blackmore had ever worked with outside of Purple. A singer who could match his ambition note for note, who elevated his compositions into something mythic. And Blackmore fired him. On the surface, this looks like classic Blackmore, a dictator cleaning house, moving on because he got bored. But look at why. According to Dio's widow, Wendy, he was fired for not writing more commercial songs. Blackmore wanted to take Rainbow in a more mainstream direction, and Dio didn't agree. The next version of Rainbow, with Graham Bonnet and then Joe Lynn Turner, was explicitly designed to be more radio-friendly, more accessible. And here's the thing. Blackmore had built his entire mythology on being the uncompromising artist, the guy who didn't care what sold, the moody genius who followed his muse wherever it led. Firing Dio was a quiet admission that actually, he kind of did care about being popular. For a guy who styled himself above it all, walking away from artistic greatness to chase hits was a betrayal of his own image. Not easy for someone whose whole identity was built on not caring. Number 2, leaving Deep Purple in 1975. Okay, here's the elephant in the room. The move that should be number 1, but is actually number 2. By 1975, Deep Purple had conquered the world. Machine Head, Made in Japan, Smoke on the Water, Burn. They were selling out arenas and printing money. And Ritchie Blackmore walked away. He left behind a guaranteed paycheck and huge tours to start all over again with a group of musicians, a band called Elf, and their singer Ronnie James Dio. It's the stuff of rock legend. But look at his internal state. He was bored. He was checked out. 1974's Stormbringer showed that. He was tired of the funky direction Coverdale and Hughes were taking the band in. For a man who thrives on newness and control, walking away from something he couldn't stand was not an act of bravery. It was an act of relief. He was following his nature. I'm bored. I can do better. I'll build my own kingdom. It was easy. It was inevitable. A bold move would have been staying and fighting for control. Instead, he did what he always did, burned it down and started fresh. So if leaving was easy, what was the one thing that was truly, fundamentally hard for Ritchie Blackmore? Number 1, the Deep Purple reunion in 1984. Walking away was easy for him. You know what wasn't easy? Walking back. In 1984, Ritchie Blackmore did something he had never done in his entire career. He looked backwards. He picked up the phone and agreed to reunite with Deep Purple Mark II. Gillan, Glover, Lord, Paice, and himself. The classic lineup. Now, fans may point out that Blackmore had hired Roger Glover in Rainbow. He even reached out to Gillan to join Rainbow. But here's the distinction. Those were attempts to bring Gillan into Blackmore's world, Rainbow, his project, his rules. The '84 reunion was different. This was Blackmore going back to their world. It's the only time he's ever gone back. Why did he do it? We don't know for certain. Rainbow's last album, Bent Out of Shape, had done okay, but it wasn't a blockbuster. Purple's back catalog was still selling, and reports suggest that each member pocketed around a lot of money for the reunion. Maybe it was purely financial. Maybe he missed the chemistry that only Mark II could produce. John Lord said they had been resisting barrel loads of money for years before finally agreeing. So it wasn't just about the check. Something else had shifted. But forget the money for a second. The money just raised the stakes. The true boldness of character was the admission hidden inside that decision. To do this, Ritchie had to admit that he needed them. He had to admit that the magic of Mark II was something he couldn't replicate, not even with the mighty Ronnie James Dio or the commercial polish of Joe Lynn Turner's Rainbow. He had to trade his total control in Rainbow for the shared, chaotic, but unbeatable power of Deep Purple. Going backward was the one thing his character seemed to forbid. That's what makes it his boldest move. So there it is, the man who defined himself by burning bridges, blowing things up, and moving forward, ultimately made his boldest move by taking a step back into purple. Blackmore built his legend on just destroying things and never apologizing or explaining. But the reunion proves something interesting about the man. Underneath all that bravado, underneath the mythology of the lone wolf and the guy who didn't care, there was a guy who, at least once, swallowed his pride and admitted that others contributed equally. What do you think? Did I get the ranking right? Which Blackmore move do you think was the boldest? Drop your thoughts below. Thanks for watching.